I welcome you all to Group 1 Mains special classes conducted for the benefit of students appearing for the mains examination of Group 1 services through the platform of Telangana Satellite Channel TSAT. Today's topic is about global environmental issues. Under paper 4, the students are expected to have intensive and wide analysis pertaining to Indian economy, Telangana economy, and how economic development process has led to environmental problems, and how as Group 1 officers they are going to contribute towards reducing the environmental problems through attainment of sustainable development. Global environmental issues refers to all those environmental issues which are common to the entire globe. These environmental issues are created by the human beings through their aggressive economic activities. The negative effects of their aggressive economic activities have globally created these severe environmental issues. Few environmental issues have become quite serious, and the other environmental issues have become quite catastrophic, which are on the verge of collapsing the entire planet of Earth. So in this regard, we are going to now try to understand what are the global environmental issues. The contents of today's topic include global environmental issues definition and causes, global environmental issues, what are the types of global environmental issues and what is their impact, and out of many environmental issues that the globe is experiencing, climate change is quite serious and is about to lead to catastrophic effects on the globe. And the second one is about the global warming and what is the sustainable development and sustainable development goals which have been framed in 2015 by United Nations organization for the purpose of generating or running the process of economic development on a sustainability principle. Global environmental issues definition and causes. If we see the definition, environment, what exactly is environment? It refers to all ecological units which are naturally present on Earth in the form of land, water, air, soil, forest, sunlight, minerals, living organisms, all biotic and abiotic. This is about the definition of environment. Environment is also recognized in the form of 4 layers of the Earth. These 4 layers or 4 spheres of the Earth include atmosphere, hydrosphere, lithosphere and biosphere. And any kind of disruptions which are caused by either human activities or by the nature's activities, which are going to create disturbances in the usual functioning of the ecosystems, will give rise to these environmental issues. And environmental issues already, as I have told in the beginning, they become serious if the ecosystem cannot recover in the present situation, and sometimes they may even become catastrophic, causing the ecosystem to collapse finally. Global environmental issues can be defined as environmental problems which are caused by the human activities that are going to affect large areas of the Earth or sometimes the entire Earth's environment, causing havoc for the entire ecosystem to sustain in a normal or natural manner. Such kind of issues are called as global environmental issues affecting a major part of the Earth's environment or larger areas of the Earth. We have different types of global environmental issues which include climate change, global warming, ozone layer depletion, water pollution, air pollution, solid waste management, deforestation, oceans getting acidified or acidification of oceans, desertification, that is the human habitations in the course of time are turning into serious kind of deserts, then acid rains, where the rains, through rains we are not going to get fresh water, but we are going to get the acids which got concentrated through the pollution of the air, leading to the fall of or experience of acid rains on the Earth. Then waste disposal, as the population is increasing, the disposing waste also is becoming a serious problem, creating environmental issues. Overpopulation is the root cause for all these global environmental issues. During the early days of human life, there was limited population and all such kind of issues were not identified or were not existing. But in the course of time, as evolution progressed, the total population on the entire earth distributed in different parts of the globe increased, causing overpopulation. Overpopulation led to overproduction and overconsumption. Overproduction, overconsumption led to overutilization of the planet Earth, which has led to all such kinds of environmental issues. United Nations system adopted international frameworks for 3 key and major issues which are encoded as triple planetary crisis, and this triple planetary crisis comprises of the climate change, pollution and biodiversity loss. Out of all these various types of environmental issues, the alarming issues which are causing catastrophical effects on the existence of the planet Earth are 3. They are climate change, pollution and biodiversity loss. So, what is the impact of all these global environmental issues? Global environmental issues in the form of different environmental problems. First, they lead to environmental degradation in 3 major forms. First form is depletion of the resources, where all the important natural resources which are very essential for the existence of the biodiversity and ecosystem on the earth are going to be on the verge of losing their quality, like air, water and soil. Next is the ecosystems and the habitat which are created naturally for the purpose of sustainability of the life and the existence of the humanity on this earth gets destructed totally. And very serious problem is the extinction of the wildlife and pollution. So, depletion of resources, destruction of ecosystems and habitat, extinction of the wildlife and pollution will come out as the impact created by the global environmental issues. What are the causes of the global environmental issues? There are several causes associated with the development process and the human activities. So, the first one is economic development. The pace at which the countries have gone for economic growth and economic development, especially after 1800 or maybe after the Industrial Revolution, has led to the alarming situation of creating a variety of global environmental issues. Technological innovations, people always want to have different types of modern technologies, and in the course of innovations made in technology, there is going to be maximum utilization or maybe overutilization of the resources. The imbalance between the availability of the resources and the overutilization of the resources in the form of technological innovations create serious environmental issues. As the population is increasing, consumption needs also increase. When the consumption needs increases, naturally production process, through production process overutilization of the resources, both renewable and non-renewable, as a result of which environmental issues globally are created. And these days, all the countries are on the rat race of accumulating huge amounts of wealth for the purpose of getting the status of being recognized as the richest country or the leading economy in the entire globe. So, wealth accumulation also is a kind of rat race which is ultimately leading to environmental issues globally. Ecological footprint, there is increased demand for natural resources. Industrial revolution, where we have moved from the natural agricultural process to the man-made, machine-made revolution in the form of setting up of new industries in order to satisfy the human needs with variety of industrial commodities, led to the serious impact in the form of environmental issues. And mass production, we are not going for limited production, but we are going for mass production, not only in not only in terms of variety of the commodities, but also in terms of the quantity of the commodities, which is creating or becoming responsible to these environmental issues. And there is an exponential rise in human population in the last 200 years, and naturally when the human population are on the rise, their desires are increasing. When their desires are increasing, their demands are increasing economically. And in order to meet the increasing demands and in order to fulfill the desire related emotions of the human population, the countries are going for mass production, in the course of which environment is overutilized, as a result of which serious environmental issues are created. What are the environmental issues in India? If we take the case of India, what are the serious environmental issues? So, the globe is divided into the northern part, which is filled with all the developed countries, technologically advanced countries, and the global south is made up of developing countries and the underdeveloped countries. So, in the entire globe there is a rat race of wealth creation and mass production, and this rat race of wealth creation mass production is called as the process of economic growth and development, and this has contributed to the origin of serious global environmental issues. So, developing and underdeveloped countries in the global south historically, they bear the brunt of environmental degradation caused emergency and havoc in spite of limited or no contribution. That is, the northern part of the globe comprising of the developing countries and the undeveloped countries, though they do not contribute much towards the global environmental pollution, unfortunately, because on one hand they do not have proper methodology in order to control environmental issues, and on the other hand, because they are economically backward when compared with the developed countries, the entire brunt of environmental degradation has to be experienced by the developing countries of the south globe. So, they suffer from even financial resources scarcity also in controlling the impact of environmental extremities. For example, if you take the air pollution in India, according to the World Air Quality Report of 2021, India is giving shelter to 63 out of 100 major air polluted cities in the entire world. New Delhi is a very popularly known capital city in the entire world with the worst air quality in the world, and the tiny particles with 2.5 micrometers length are called as PM2.5 concentrations. And in India, the air composition of these PM2.5 concentrations in 48% of Indian cities is more than 10 times higher than what World Health Organization guidelines have prescribed. Then the reasons for air pollution: vehicular emissions. Indians are going for more number of better transportation facilities, and individually every person wants to have a two-wheeler and a four-wheeler, and every person in the family, that means every family is now going to have, if the family's unit is considered as 4 members unit, 4 two-wheelers will be there and 4 four-wheelers will be there. Every family will be having 8 minimum vehicles, not only for the purpose of fulfilling the desire of having transportation, but even with the desire of displaying pomp and pleasure which is considered in the society. And industrial waste, smoke from cooking, construction sector, burning of the crops, power generation are the major sources of air pollution. So, if you see, India is the 3rd largest air polluter in the world, contributing to 2.65 billion metric tons of carbon to the atmosphere every year. And this continuous, persistent means continuous exposure to PM2.5 concentrations in the air, which is 10 times higher than the prescribed levels of World Health Organization, has become responsible for creating a major number of lung and heart diseases, causing 7 million premature deaths every year. This is the intensity of air pollution in India. If you take the water pollution, unprecedented urban expansion and economic growth, illegal dumping of sewage, silt and garbage, absence of pipe planning, inadequate waste management system have all become responsible for water pollution in India. And unfortunately, though India has good number of freshwater resources in the form of several lakes and the rivers, 70% of the surface water is totally unfit for human consumption, which is creating a quite big problem of freshwater shortage for the Indians. 40 million liters of wastewater enter into the rivers and lakes. If you see the World Bank estimation or statement, World Bank says that water pollution has become the major factor for the loss of up to half of GDP growth rate. That is, we are not able to increase the process of agricultural production, because of which our GDP growth rate is becoming less than half. And the reason for a lower GDP growth rate in India, one of the reason happens to be the water pollution. So, 400,000 fatalities are registered through water pollution, and 40 million suffer from waterborne diseases, causing damage to crops, and even biodiversity damage also is made because of water pollution. And the climate change, another third important environmental issue in India, causing food and water shortage. flash floods, wildfires, long heat waves, droughts, all these are responsible for, are the impact created by the climate change. March 2022 happens to be the hottest and driest month in the last 120 years, and the temperatures have increased to 60 degrees Celsius is the surface land temperature, and 40 degrees Celsius on surface land. Then irrigation centric national water policy, that is, whatever national water policy is framed by the central government or by the state government, importance is given to the irrigation facilities, and because of which 85% have become, 85% of fresh water goes towards irrigation. Only 15% is left over for meeting the drinking water demand of the human beings or maybe the Indians, causing a freshwater accessibility crisis in states like Punjab, Haryana and Uttar Pradesh. So, 21 major Indian cities, according to a study report, are going to get affected because of the shortage of water by 2030. In all these 21 major cities, the groundwater is going to be totally exhausted, affecting nearly 40% of the population. Solid waste management, the waste management which is generated because of the increased population in India, is creating havoc and has become a major environmental issue which has to be addressed immediately, or else the Indian subcontinent is on the verge of collapse and creating a serious environmental issues and other health related issues also. So, every year 277 million tons of municipal solid waste is created in India, and experts estimated that by 2050 it will be doubled totally. And out of the total solid waste management or municipal solid waste generated, only 5% is recycled, 18% is totally decomposed, which shows that 77% is totally dumped into landfill sites, causing or creating the serious land pollution as an impact. And we have the plastic havoc, which is caused by 25,000 tons of plastic waste, which is every day created on an average. And 3 major rivers are known as highways of plastic flows, which include Indus, Ganga, Brahmaputra rivers. Then we have the biodiversity loss, another important issue in India. There are 4 important hotspots of biodiversity, that is the Himalayas, Western Ghats, Sundarban lands and the Indo-Burma region. According to the Center for Science and Environment, almost 90% of the area in these 4 hotspots of biodiversity is lost because of the human habitation. As a result of which 25 species have become extinct and 12% are classified as endangered species in India in these 4 hotspots. So, India has lost 19% of its tree cover, which shows that serious deforestation process is going on, which has to be controlled in order to control these environmental issues. Global environmental issue, that is climate change. What is the intensity? It refers to long-term shifts in temperatures and weather patterns. So, any long-term shift in temperatures and weather patterns causing inconvenience to the human beings, especially the biodiversity, is called as climate change. Since 1800, human activities, especially burning of fossil fuels like coal, oil and gas, which produce heat trapping gases like methane, carbon dioxide, nitrogen oxide, F gases, aerosols, negatively started affecting human life and even biodiversity also. There is a special term called as climate refugees, that is, many people are going to get displaced because of the climate change, and these displaced refugees are going to go in search of better places for the purpose of continuing their living. So, climate change has become so serious that it has led to the creation of special type of refugees who are called as climate refugees. The causes of climate change are same as the causes of the global environmental issues. Basically, climate change is resulting in severe air, water and soil pollution, causing havoc to the sustainability of either human life or maybe any kind of biodiversity. So, the major causes of climate change include, we are going for more and more power generation, and power generating projects are the highest thermal coal and oil utilizing thermal plants, which are creating this climate change. We are going for more type of manufacturing goods, which include cement and other type of goods, which are directly responsible for polluting the entire air. Deforestation, 12 million hectares on an average each year is lost for deforestation. And transportation results in vehicular emissions contaminating the entire atmosphere around the biodiversity. Food production, we are going for major or higher quantities of food production, as a result of which the entire natural resources are going to be diverted towards food production. And urbanization, severe urbanization leads to the contamination of the water resources as well as the soil resources and overutilization of the resources, and heavy consumption resulting from urbanization also is the cause for the climate change. What is the impact of the climate change? So, as a result of climate change, the first impact we can see is that the weather pattern and the climatic pattern is going to change. Temperatures will become quite hotter. 2011 to 2020 happens to be the hottest decade in the last 200 years that globe has experienced. And it leads to more severe storms like cyclones, hurricanes, typhoons. These are the three well-known popular storms which can create havoc, destructing human life and human properties also. Increased drought situation is the third impact. Oceans are becoming warmer and oceans are getting acidified also. And sea levels are suddenly rising. Species are lost, where the globe is losing species at a rate 1000 times greater than at any other time in recorded human history. And there is severe food scarcity in the form of global hunger increasing, nutrition becoming poor, declining crop yields and livestock, diminishing supplies from herding, hunting and fishing, which were the three main occupations right from the time of human civilization for the purpose of supplying food to the human beings. So, the health risks associated are quite very high. 13 million lives are lost due to environmental risks. And the last important impact of climate change, which is economically very serious to be addressed by the economists, is poverty and displacement. Because the climate change is leading to severe climatic conditions where food production is not possible, poverty becomes quite serious, especially in developing countries like India, where several policies are framed for the purpose of controlling poverty. But if these policies on one hand were able to reduce poverty levels only to 26%, on the other hand, the environment is becoming or creating a havoc kind of situation on the policies which are framed and implemented by different governments for controlling the poverty levels in the country. So, for addressing the poverty issue in India, it is not only the policy framework towards providing employment opportunities to the poor people, but even an environmental issue trying to reduce the impact of climate change is but necessary. And poverty as well as the displacement problem, where people who are living around the coastal areas because of severe impact due to the climatic change are willing to leave those coastal areas and are coming in search of the better places, causing this displacement problem quite serious. So, 23.1 million people on an average, they have got displaced because of the weather related events between 10 and 20. If you come to the efforts which are taken for mitigating climate change evolved as a global emergency. And the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, this is a very important topic which is going to be asked from this part of economy and development. I request all the students to make a special note of this United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, which was established for the purpose of tackling serious negative impacts of the climate change. The United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change was established as an international environmental treaty to combat dangerous human interference with the climate system. So, because of the rising economic development and growth process, human interference towards with the environmental normalcy has increased, and this human interference led to severe climatic change problem. So, for the purpose of mitigating or reducing the effect of the climate change, a treaty was made by the United Nations Organization, and that treaty is called as International Environmental Treaty in the form of UNFCCC. It was signed by 154 states at United Nations Conference on Environment and Development, popularly known as Earth Summit, which was held at Rio de Janeiro in 1992. Headquarters of UNFCCC is located at Bonn of Germany, and it has come into force on 21st March 1994. So, this treaty insisted for continuous scientific research, regular meetings, negotiations and future policy agreements related to ensure adaptability to climate change, ensure food production, economic development in a sustainable manner. Kyoto Protocol from 2005 to 2020 was the first implementation of UNFCCC measures, and the Paris Agreement of 2015 superseded Kyoto Protocol since 2015. It has 165 signatories, that is, the countries signing this particular treaty with 198 parties, and signatories are divided into Annex 1, that is developed countries, Annex 2, developed countries with special financial responsibility, Annex 3, developing countries. Paris Agreement, the contemporary serious effort made by the UNFCCC to combat climate change. So, United Nations Climate Change Conference was held in Paris. This was the 26th conference. In 2015, the historic Paris Agreement was made, and this Paris Agreement was made with the following three objectives: to limit the global temperatures rise to 1.5 degrees, to review the country's commitment every 5 years, and financing the developing countries for the purpose of mitigating the climate change. So, 194 parties legally got binded to this Paris Agreement of International Treaty, and their objectives also included to create a net zero emissions worldwide, and a nationally determined contribution where every country is going to get its annual report and present this annual report, which is going to be related pertaining to the steps that the respective country has taken towards reducing the impact of climate change. So, in COP26, that is Conference of Parties of 26th time, they have met in Glasgow of Scotland in 2021, where it was called as Paris Rule Book, and in 2023 the first global talk is going to take place in United Arab Emirates under Conference of Parties of 27 for the purpose of assessing the progress attained by different countries on Paris Agreement goals. So, Paris Agreement goals, goal number 1, goal number 2, goal number 3, goal number 4 and goal number 5. The first important goal was to control the temperature rise by 1.5 degrees and review the country's commitment every 5 years, financing the developing countries to mitigate the negative impacts of the climate change and to attain net zero emissions worldwide. The global warming, it is a gradual increase. The next issue to be addressed now is the global warming. It is a gradual increase in the Earth's temperature due to the greenhouse effect. So, carbon dioxide, methane, chlorofluorocarbons and nitrous oxide are well known greenhouse gases. These greenhouse gases have the characteristic feature of retaining the ultraviolet rays from the sun and radiating the same onto the earth. So, because of the continuous usage of the natural resources, because of the increasing development activities, and because of the increased transportation processes, basically speaking, these greenhouse gases composition in the air has increased, and when the greenhouse gases composition increased, the capacity to absorb the ultraviolet rays from the sun, which can cause a serious threat to the biodiversity on the earth, has increased, and the same is again radiated onto the earth, creating severe climatic change patterns in the form of changes in the weather and the atmospheric conditions. So, the troposphere layer of the Earth's atmosphere has a thick layer of greenhouse gases which allow the sun rays to fall on the Earth. Increased infrared radiations due to the increased greenhouse gases composition increased Earth's temperature. So, this phenomenon is called as global warming. So, global warming simply can be called as warming up the entire globe because of the highest concentration of greenhouse gases created by the intensive usage of the resources on the earth by the human activities as a part of economic development and growth. So, causes of global warming are of two types. Few are man-made causes and few are natural causes. Then what are the effects of the global warming? Global warming is increasing faster than the calculations of the climatologists. Global mean temperature will be rising, transformation in the precipitation patterns will occur, enhanced extremity and frequency of floods and droughts may happen, and the sea level will rise, because of which, in the form of melting of the glaciers, ice sheets of the Greenland, thermal expansion of oceans and seas, and all the coastal areas will be submerged. And what is the climate change and global warming in India? India is ranked 4th amongst the most affected as the most affected country by the climate change in the world. It emits 3 gigatons of greenhouse gases each year. 2.5 tons per person on an average is ejected into the atmosphere in the form of greenhouse gases, which is lesser than world's average. The heat waves frequency and intensity has increased. In 2019. If you see the temperature, it has reached 50.6 degrees Celsius. 2019 has been the most hottest year in the previous decade, that is from 10 to 20. Severe landslides and floods have become common in Assam, and India ranked 8th in terms of climate change performance index among 63 countries, emitting 92% of the greenhouse gases. So, between 1901 to 2018, temperatures rose by 0.7 degrees Celsius. So, the government, for the purpose of this is the outcome of the climate change in India, and if the climate change is not seriously addressed, if this problem is not seriously addressed, definitely we the Indians will have to suffer in the form of number one, total change in the seasons, which we are already experiencing, and different kind of precipitations causing havoc in the form of floods and severe drought. We may even have to suffer from the scarcity of the food production, and ultimately the human health factor is going to be highly impacted negatively by the outcome of all these environmental changes or environmental issues. So, this climate change is a serious problem, and causing climate change and global warming are the 2 serious issues which have to be addressed by the government. And for the purpose of addressing, the policies are framed in such a way that few policies are going to address on the mitigation process, that is controlling the climate change impact, which has already become serious in India. Second is adaptation, that is whatever economic development process is going to be continuous. When the process of development is going to be continuous, the usage of the resources also is going to be on the same mode. When the usage of the resources is going to be on the same mode, ultimate outcome is the climate change is going to continue. So, human life has to be adapted, and the policy framework has to be done in such a way that human beings development process and living process is going to get adapted to this increasing climate change, which is expected to become more and more serious and intense and severe in the future. Activism, the entire society and even culturally, the activism should be made by the government and by the people for the purpose of increasing awareness amongst the general public pertaining to the negative impact of the climate change. So, the policies, 3 types of policies related to the mitigation of the climate change and the global warming, adaptation to the climate change, and activizing the entire human society by creating and awareness through education has been on the front list of the government. So, the major India's gift to the world, Panchamrit, it's a very important general studies question. COP26 Panchamrit, the COP26, which was held at Glasgow of Scotland in November 2021. Panchamrit is the gift given by the India to the rest of the world. According to this Panchamrit, the carbon neutrality is going to be reduced by 20%, and non-fossil fuels energy capacity expansion by 2030. That is, by 2030, whatever energy capacity requirements are there for the country, those are going to be met by expanding the usage of non-fossil fuels, which are eco-friendly and environmental friendly, and are going to reduce the negative impact on the environmental degradation or environmental condition. Carbon intensity is going to be cut by 45% by 2030, and draw the energy requirements from renewable resources and reduce the usage of non-renewable resources by 2030, cut 1 billion tons of greenhouse gases emission by 2030. That is, in the next 7 years, our targets which are fixed by the government and are provided as 5 Panchamrits or principles to be followed by any country which is aiming at reducing the climate change and the global warming is given by the Prime Minister of the country in COP26 under United Nations Framework Convention for Climate Change Conference of Parties held at Glasgow of Scotland in November 2021. And the Prime Minister has stressed for one important term related to environment, that is life, that is changing the Indian lifestyle for adapting to sustainable environment has been the phrase which has been popularized by the government in the international convention. Sustainable development goals. Global goals, sustainable development goals are the global goals. They are a collection of 17 interlinked objectives framed to serve as blueprint for peace and prosperity of humans and the planet now and into the future. Emphasized on interconnected global environmental, economic and social aspects of sustainable development, United Nations General Assembly has formulated Sustainable Development Goals in 2015, which have succeeded the erstwhile Millennium Development Goals in Agenda 2030. These Sustainable Development Goals are monitored by United Nations High-Level Political Forum on Sustainable Development, and implementation of Sustainable Development Goals started worldwide in 2016. The then Secretary General of United Nations, that is Antonio Guterres of the United Nations, issued a global call for a decade of action from 2020 to 2030 to deliver Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. So, overall speaking, Sustainable Development Goals are those global goals which are framed by the United Nations organization in order to mitigate the serious and environmental issues and the global environmental issues which are coming in the way of sustainability of the biodiversity, including the human life. So, these Sustainable Development Goals should be made effective by 2030 as per the call given by the Antonio Guterres, who have started these Sustainable Goals, Development Goals implementation. If you see the previous questions asked pertaining to today's topic on global warming and climate change and global environmental issues, the first question asks you, access to affordable, reliable, sustainable and modern energy is the sine qua non, that is the principle to achieve Sustainable Development Goals. Comment, what are the steps that are taken by the Government of India pertaining to the implementation of accessibility to the affordable energy resources, reliable resources which are not going to damage the environment, sustainable resources, that is those resources which are going to be available for the future generations use, and even the modern energy also. Second question, discuss how India can attain sustainable agricultural production under increasing global warming. So, India is basically an agricultural enriched country. Because of the global warming and the continuous climate change, agricultural production may become quite backward. So, what are the steps that the government has to take from the point of view of sustaining the attained agricultural production as well as to raise the agricultural production in the coming future by taking proper policy measures on global warming and even on climate change. Discuss the socio-economic impact of climate change in India. So, because of the climate change in the last one decade, especially starting from 2001 till 2020, last 2 decades if you take, what are the social factors which were got negatively affected by the climate change and economic factors which were negatively affected by the climate change. Critically analyze the environmental policy of India towards mitigation and adapting to climate changes and global warming, and describe the major outcomes of 26th session of COP2 United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Write about India's commitments in this conference. So, with this we come to the end of today's topic on global environmental issues. I wish all the best to the students preparing on this particular topic. Thank you You were there for the last half an hour with Dr. E. Pavani, subject expert from Department of Economics, Government City College.